Welcome to another episode on the Dutch Pagan channel. A very cold, snowy and wintry one at that. And we are talking about fairy tales. Now, most of you think that our fairy tales, our old folklore, mythology and Western civilization in general was written down for the first time in maybe the 17th, 18th century. And you'd be right. That's the first time that it was written down. But these tales were told long before they were written down, generation after generation. There's even a group of scientists now who figured out that quite possibly, especially the tale that we are looking at today, Jack and the Beanstalk, is over 5,000 years old. If you don't believe me, you can Google it. Google will tell you everything you need to know. 5,000 years old. So that means that the people who imagined this fairy tale for the first time, their way of thinking was very different than our way of thinking. They have a very holistic and shamanic way of thinking, and this video is here to try to find the meaning of the symbolism behind Jack and the Beanstalk, and therefore get some insights into how our ancestors 5,000 years ago viewed ourselves and the world that we live in. Now, Jack and the Beanstalk, if there's ever been one fairy tale where you absolutely have to believe that it's symbolic, then it's Jack and the Beanstalk, because this story is just too ridiculous to believe. It's a story about a poor mother and a child. There's no father in the house, there's nobody working because they're very poor. They have just one cow, a white cow. They're called Milky White. And the cow gives milk. So they take the milk to the market, they sell it, and they get some money, just enough to keep each other alive. That's basically it. But one day the inevitable happens, the cow stops giving milk because the cow got old, right? So they take it to the market and he says, listen, the mother says, Jack, you have to sell this cow and at least we'll have some money. So he sells the cow, but he sells the cow for 3 magic beans. So he comes home, very happy with himself, thinking, wow, I got 3 magic beans. His mom is all mad at him, slaps him, because that's what we used to do to our children, and takes the magic beans, throws them out the window and sends him to bed without any dinner. So the next morning, Jack wakes up hungry and groggy because he didn't have any supper last night, and he sees that the magic beans worked. There's a magic beanstalk that just grew overnight to the heavens. And he climbs this beanstalk and there's a castle there. It just gets even more ridiculous as more as the story goes on, because like, how can a beanstalk grow in one night? Well, yeah, it's a magical beanstalk, but how did the castle get there on the top of the beanstalk? Was it already there, or was it built in the same night that the beanstalk grew? And then he comes up to the castle and there are already people living in the castle that was on top of a beanstalk that just grew overnight. It doesn't make any sense. It has to be symbolic. But to continue the story, the synopsis, very briefly, he comes up and he meets this giantess. She's the wife of the big giant that lives here. And she actually turns out to help him. Now, because the giant eats kids. I believe he says in English the famous word, fee, fi, fo, fum, to scare the children. In Dutch it's a bit different. But Jack, with the help of his wife, steals some gold from the giant. Takes it back down. Everything's great because they have some money, but in time that money runs out. So Jack has to go up the beanstalk again, and now he gets a chicken with lays golden eggs. So they're like good for all eternity. But then he finds out that his mother's soul is empty. They have money, but they don't have anything that brings them joy. So he goes up one more time and he steals the harp of the giant. And the giant notices this because the harp cries for help. And the giant comes down and he has to rush down and he chops down the giant beanstalk. Giant falls, giant is dead, everybody's happy. So it's a very ridiculous story. And often the explanation that is given to us is, well, it's a story about seizing the opportunity, even though things are miserable. Which always struck me as weird, because seizing the opportunity means stealing when you got the chance and then killing the guy if he comes after you. That doesn't seem like a good lesson. So if you look at the symbolism, what's this story about? Well, it's about a giant beanstalk. Well, whenever you have a very ancient tale of a giant tree or a giant beanstalk, you can see that as a metaphor for your own spine, or the curvature of the beanstalk could symbolize the kundalini energy from your second wheel all the way up inside yourself. So the story starts with a cow, and the cow is white. Now that's important because white symbolizes purity, meaning that the mother and Jack both were, even though they were poor, they were pure of heart. And meaning that with that pure of heart that they have, Jack traveled up the beanstalk, traveled up his spine, traveled up to his third eye, traveled up to your crown chakra, traveled up to the world of the mystery in the world of the gods, to this higher self. And when he comes there are two things. There are riches to be had. Now, this is very true. Because spiritually speaking, it is possible to get an insight that is very valuable. But the difficulty with spiritual insights is that you need to put them into practice. The vision that has been given to you, you must follow. You must take it to earth. You must ground it here, and the love and the vision that you have, you must materialize it so people can touch it and people can feel it. And that's the difficult part. That is symbolized by the giant, which giants often in Nordic mythology can be seen as giant primordial energies. When you try to implement your vision, that vision that has been giving you way up high your beanstalk, there are troubles. There are things that are keeping you from fulfilling your dreams. I think we can all relate to that. Meaning, we all have a certain life, and we all have our troubles. If you really have an ability and a chance to end all your troubles, that will give you a lot of trouble, because there's a large part of you who doesn't want to give up its troubles. The wind is blowing and it's making my camera go like this. I hope it isn't too distracting. Meaning that most people, when you solve all their problems, they will just create new problems because we're addicted to problems. We don't like solutions. You can look this up for a fact, because most people who are winning the lottery, if you check in on them like 10 years later, most of them are poorer than before they won the lottery. Meaning that if you give them anything, everything, they will sabotage themselves to make themselves feel miserable again. That is the symbolism of the giant. If you want to make your life better, that means you go up your spine to your own higher self and you reside, you touch the clouds of Asgard. You can, if you're humble and if you're pure enough in your heart, you can get this insight. But you need to bring it into practice here in Midgard. And that means you have to fight yourself, or maybe your old self. And that's what the giant, I think, represents. The giant tries to get you back, tries to kill you, tries to make sure you never achieve anything. Now, anybody who's ever tried to really improve themselves probably knows what I'm talking about. Maybe I already said this, but his wife is like a spirit helper that you find in the spirit realm. Because strangely enough, she's the wife of the giant, but she helps you steal all his stuff. You think as a wife she'd be loyal to her husband, but apparently no, she's loyal to you, a little kid who just broke into their castle. Doesn't make any sense. Well, it does make sense if you look at the symbolism. Now, I want to take the second part of this video to talk about what this means for me, because the long-time followers of this channel, I know who you are, know that this video started where I got really the feeling that Odin talked to me and he gave me an insight. And the funny thing is, that insight gave me some money. Yeah. But that money is now spent. But I realized that what he told me wasn't just a one-time thing, that I could learn and grow and stop doing it. I'm learning about the stock market. and I'm learning more about crypto. This sounds like a crypto scam. A lot of people turn off when I say Bitcoin. They go, oh, this guy's scamming me. I'm not selling anything. I'm just telling my story. I'm learning it. I'm learning so that the money that I make, thanks to the insight of Odin, isn't just a one-time thing. Now, how does this relate to Jack and the Beanstalk? Well, Jack first goes up and he gets something and he gets money. Then he goes the second time, and when he gets the second time, he gets a chicken with the golden eggs, meaning that there's a continual flow of gold. And that's actually what I'm trying to create in my life. I've already gotten some money from an insight up high, and now I'm trying to make that insight even more here on earth and keep going so I can basically have a chicken with a golden egg. So on a personal note, I really enjoyed making this video because halfway through the preparations of this video, I kind of find out that I am Jack and I was climbing my beanstalk when I was talking to Odin, and now I am climbing the beanstalk again and I am looking for the chicken with the golden eggs. Meanwhile, I am fighting with myself, and the self being the ogre. I hope this makes some sense to you at home. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any suggestions what Jack and the Beanstalk could mean, because there are actually more layers to this and more ways to interpret this myth. Keep climbing your beanstalk, and I'll see you all next week. Ga met de goden.